Hello and welcome to another episode of Leaders of Transformation. Today's guest is going to talk to us about millennial leadership. And oh my gosh, what a huge generation of possibility. And we're going to talk about it here today. We have Andrew Senduk here. And Andrew is from, he's from the Netherlands, but he now lives in Indonesia, in Bali. And welcome, Andrew. We're excited to have you in the Leaders of Transformation.
Thanks so much, Nicole. Great to be here. It's an honor and a privilege to spend some time with you.
Yeah, you know what? We've had we had a good conversation, and it's like, man, I just can't wait. I mean, we had to take a little while because you were busy and I was busy to book this conversation that we could actually record it. But I've been so looking forward to it because I think
we're here now. I couldn't sleep.
We're here.
I couldn't sleep until now. I'm so excited.
So you're excited because now you can go to sleep afterwards. But we want to give also a shout out to Ashwin Krishnan because he's the one who actually introduced me to Andrew. And I so appreciate Ashwin has actually introduced me to some really neat people. And
awesome guy.
It was really, really awesome guy. Yeah. He's evolving and growing in what he's doing. We've had him on this podcast and talking about some of that, the cybersecurity, the passion that he has around that, and also purpose and helping people. So it's really, really neat. But today we are going to talk about, as I said, millennial leadership. And I'm excited for our listeners and viewers that are out there tuning in. Thank you for being here. And we want to make sure this is going to be well worth it. So we're going to talk about millennial leadership and then how it relates to you, where you are in what you're doing. You're a leader of transformation or aspiring to be one, and you want to figure out how can I make a difference in the world. And so we're going to relate it to you. Let me give you a little bit of background on Andrew. He's got quite the bio. I'm going to give you sort of the highlights of it. He's worked for top-tier consulting and banking firms, 10 years of experience in e-commerce and entrepreneurial experience in both Europe and Southeast Asia. He's built multiple venture capital backed companies and has raised over $25 million in US dollars. And his most recent venture scaled from 0 to 500 people in 18 months. And he's been involved in board level projects at Fortune 500 companies. He's passionate about technology, e-commerce, millennial leadership, and digital transformation. I love your mission, Andrew, is to inspire leadership within the millennial generation and ignite a digital mindset. Totally love it. So that's a very brief overview on you, but let's dive in and let's talk about, so you were successful. My gosh, you had a business that had 500 employees in 18 months.
Yeah. It was a roller coaster.
Yeah. What's that? It was a roller coaster. Yes. Why did you leave that? Why did you sell out and do something else?
Well, I think, as an entrepreneur, we built that company, and it was, we started in a small office, and we had this vision of building this female-focused website, and things took off, right? So when we started hiring people, and it suddenly became like a monster company. I mean, we went through like 3 different mergers and acquisitions, and we got like the top investors of Southeast Asia were invested in our company, and suddenly you see going from starting a business which is really yours to starting like this monster like cruise ship, which is not really yours, which is almost driven by by the other stakeholders, by the other investors. And the more and more the business grew, the more and more me and my wife, because we were both in the company, we both built that company with our fellow co-founders, by the way. But the more and more the business grew, we had the sense of like disconnection with where we wanted to go personally. And then at a certain moment we said like, okay, are we still hanging on for the money, or is there a different purpose for our lives? And then some stuff happened also with me personally. I lost my parents in a quite short amount of time, where it made me realize so what do I do with my life, right? Am I sticking around again like for monetary purposes, or is it the time for me now to dig into myself, like dig into what I want to share with the world? And then I came to the conclusion that the experience that I had, and coming from both corporate and startup industry, I believe there's a message to share about this generation. And then I thought like let's just jump the ship, and then I jumped the ship.
And from there, that was did you you had that in Indonesia. You were living in Indonesia, or did you actually
Yeah, we
leave
lived in
after?
Jakarta. No, we lived
Okay.
in Jakarta. So originally from Amsterdam, Netherlands. We moved to Jakarta in 2013, and then I was involved with different startups. But this startup specifically, I built in around 2015, and then that was a roller coaster for 18, 24 months. And then I came to the conclusion that it's been good, so I
Yeah.
jumped out. But now I'm just focusing purely on speaking and spreading the message that I have, and writing books and advising startups.
And you've got your new book, which is called
Ignite Millennial Leadership.
Yes, Six
Yeah,
Steps to Unlocking Next Generation Leaders.
yeah.
So, why millennials? Why are you focusing in there?
So maybe one of the reasons that I'm so focused on this group is also because I live here now. I live in Indonesia now, where there's 255, 260 million people. I mean, it's the fourth largest country in the world. 50% is below 30.
Wow.
And coming from the Netherlands, which is a very, they call it gray population. I think the average in the Netherlands is maybe 45, 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
There's a huge difference in energy in society here. So that's one. So that's more from a demographic, but then also because I was in tech, and 100% of our staff was millennials. So there was a lot of exposure to this group, and I'm borderline millennial, because the definition is actually everyone who's born between 1980 and 2000. 1980, 2000. So I'm 37 now, but everyone who was born after is part of that generation. And I've worked with so many of these guys, and I see that there's a challenge there, especially from a Southeast Asian or Indonesian culture. There's a big challenge because there's deep roots. There's deep roots in culture and deep roots in society, where this generation is just following executions. They're executing orders. So oftentimes, so one of the best examples is that I saw guys coming to our office, and they came from big corporates, and their mindset was just cultivated in executing orders. So I've seen so many people come into our company, and because of the leadership that we had, these guys transformed. They became like leaders within 6 months. So it made me wonder, if this guy would be still working for a big corporation in Indonesia all his life, then his potential would be maybe 10% of his potential would be tapped into. Now this guy comes to, now this is specifically our company, but of course this way of leadership is for everyone.
Yes.
Now this guy comes to their company, within 6 months, he's leading 6 people. He's hiring people, which he has never done before. So it made me think okay, you know what? I think there's something here. If we live in a country where, half of the population is below 30, which is the engine of the economy. And in 2025, 75% of the global working force will be millennials. Then there's huge potential here to move not only companies forward, but just move economies forward, move countries forward. And especially for Indonesia, where there's so much investments coming into the country now. Even for us, our company, we raised over $20 million along our journey. And then there's other examples of Indonesian tech startups. They raise billions of dollars. This is so the eyes of investors are also on the country. So I think this is a thing which needs to be solved, but this is for sure a thing that needs to be transformed. This way of mentality, and just showing these guys as well, you can actually do that. You can lead. I know you've not been used to it, but there's a lot of potential in you. So that's when I really fell in love with this topic, because I've seen girls transform. They just transform, and I think that is one of the things where I get super excited about.
So how are you doing that now that you've got your own company and you're focusing? You've got your book, so they can read your book. But what are some of the things that you're actually doing to get out there?
So now, to be very honest, the last couple of months have been very inwards, where I've been writing a lot, and I've been interviewing a lot of my my friends or other movers and shakers in the region. This could be millennial investors, young guys. These guys are maybe begin 30. but they're managing $100 million venture capital fund. Or, I've been interviewing like social influencers who are, say, comedians, but they have massive successful YouTube channels, or like artists, like yesterday, what I shared with you before, with like a million following on Facebook. And I've been interviewing these guys to get a bit of, to learn also more, but how to spread it. So I'm speaking globally now on conferences. I'm talking to corporates about this topic. That is one. And two, I'm still involved with the tech startup industry. So I'm still helping these guys, actually both on an operational perspective, but also on how they lead. So like these two things are one of the main channels for me to kind of like spread the news, and doing like these amazing podcasts with amazing people like you.
Awesome. Yeah. So what would you teach people if they're saying, okay, I have a whole bunch of millennials, like, and here in North America, at least, I know that there's actually a lot of frustration around working with these millennials because they ask questions that the previous generation didn't ask. Like, why do I want to do that? What's the purpose behind it? And there's this whole frustration around that they feel like they're entitled. Now that can be bad, but it can also be good. They have very high expectations. I mean, I've met some extraordinary, and I actually should introduce you to some of these people, like 23 years old, multi author of best-selling books, and amazing. Doing TED Talks and talking about building community, and the 3 billion under 30 and all the 2 billion under 20. I was like, you're 23. My gosh, exactly. The heck, that's awesome. But they expect that. They just believe that it's possible. And then of course there's the other part of that generation which is lost, and like you said, they're following orders. So what do you teach them? Do you you teach them, and you also teach the people that lead them, I guess, as well, right?
Like I see this generation. I think all you've said is right, of course, and there's a lot is being said about them, and all is written about them, and all these things about entitled and lazy, or if you're privileged. I think it all is a matter of relationships, because even a full potential, you could get a full potential out of a person only if you build that relationship. So I think like leadership today, at least what I believe is that relationships like fundamental to that, where before it's more like you got your teams that execute orders, but now it's really building relationships with these people to get a connection, right? And communication is connection is engagement, and once you can engage them, then you can actually dig deeper into actually what they want. So I think relationship is one, and I think the topic of self-awareness is a huge one. Self-awareness, where maybe specifically even in Asia, there's no time for self-awareness almost, because you just need to work. But I think giving these people a mirror to let them understand themselves better and what they're good at, and also what they're not good at, is I think crucial for them to excel in their career and excel in their life. Because so many things, even, I mean, to be very honest, like when I was in banking, I worked with like a lot of older guys, like the seniors on the dealing room, and I even saw these guys have like no clue about self-awareness, and they were just stuck in their job. And it's because I think one of the reasons is because they take more time, like planning their holiday every year instead of planning their life, or planning what they actually want, or what they're good at or not good at. So I think like what for me is fundamental to this generation is really like building relationships and digging down into their strengths and their weaknesses. I think for a leader, I mean, Albert Einstein once said, like, if you judge a fish on its ability to run, then it's going to think it's stupid all its life. And I think that is really like what I've seen in our company as well. I mean, scaling a company from like one employee to 550, 600 people like in a short amount of time. Like one of the pressures or privileges I have is to really understand like what you're good at as a person, what you're good at, and then placing you in the right position to let you excel. Because so many times I see these guys, they struggle, and then they feel like not confident anymore, and then you see them emotionally like kind of like break down. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, when you put them in the right position, they excel. So I think it's this type of view, or this type of self-awareness that you need to create and help them get to know themselves better.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those are our core elements.
Yeah, absolutely. And that makes a lot of sense. And why waste your time? I think the previous generations is just like, do the job. It's interesting
Yeah,
because even as I've talked to people who have given me executives in transition in their 50s or whatever, they
yeah,
hand me their resume and it's like all these things that they've done. And but it doesn't really speak to who they are. It
yeah,
just
exactly.
speaks to what they've accomplished,
Yeah, exactly.
and or even not even so much what they've accomplished, but their their role description of what they've
Yeah,
done from that
yeah,
standpoint. And I always looked at it and went, okay, like who are you? How
yeah,
do you differentiate yourself from everybody else that's submitting a resume for that next job? And I
yeah,
think that this next generation is just naturally, if we give them the tools, they've
yeah,
got the fire, they've got the excitement,
yeah,
they want to
yeah,
learn and they
yeah,
want to grow and they want to do things with a purpose. And so if you
yeah,
can give them those tools and point them in the right direction, say, yeah, don't waste your time over here, focus here because this is where you're
yeah,
good,
yeah,
then everybody wins. It's that's my coaching has always been about the strengths based
yeah.
approach to it.
I
So
love it.
that's why I love that. Yeah, because
Yeah,
it's like, why would I waste my time doing something that just to get a job done? And then you have all these people who are like, you know, uh, mentally, emotionally dead,
exactly,
and they're
exactly.
wondering like, what am I going to do now? You know?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I
And
think like talking about successful, like being successful. I mean, I think truly success is really part of like really finding out who you are and what you can do and what you're good at, and then just leveraging on that, right? I mean,
yeah,
there's a lot of been written about doubling down on your strengths and stuff like that. But I think apart from all the poo-ha and the Gary V, I love him by the way, um, but I think it's really like it's so impactful if you see people who are struggling and you kind of like just shift their focus a bit and suddenly they excel. I think that is success right there, right? I think the
yeah,
moment you can change people's lives in a positive way, you build them up. I think that is really I mean for me as leader of that company, is one of the most fulfilling moments if I see people really excel and kind of like tap into their potential, which they thought they didn't have.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think that is so beautiful, and and then again, like in a young country like this and a young region like this, I believe that it's definitely a message that needs to be shared.
So what do you do when you have uh, maybe they're not stepping up? So you see potential in them, you hire them, and they don't jump on with it, like they don't get it, right? Or they
Yeah,
don't take that on and
yeah,
shift from what you were
yeah,
saying is I just want to do what I'm told
yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
I'm going to actually innovate. I mean, that's a huge shift
Yeah,
in
that's a huge
mindset.
yeah, that's true. I mean, I believe in the concept of like hiring slow and firing fast. I mean, but at the end of the day, I mean, you need to build relationships with people, right? But you're also not there to be their BFFs, so to say, and spend massive time with only one person because he just doesn't get it. I think at the end of the day, you need to have a certain time frame where you say, okay, you know what, the coming month, I'm gonna like take you under my wing, and that's also the time that you need to kind of catch the mindset, right? But if it would be that after a month or after a certain time frame it just doesn't work, or he doesn't get it, or she doesn't get it, then I think it's also good. It's also fine. But then it stops there.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned actually earlier about women and that you were looking at a company that had a lot of women. So
Mm.
what are you seeing in that, at least in that region, in terms of the women stepping into leadership roles? Even from like, we're talking about the millennials now.
Yeah. So I think originally or traditionally, I think Indonesia and Southeast Asia have been very much the picture of husband working, wife is at home taking care of the kids. Like that's the stigma, or that's the paradigm here. So what you see now, so it goes in steps. I think it goes in steps, right? Where now you see much more women working. Young women are working, so they go fresh grads are starting to work as well. I think that is what you're seeing now. But now you see more and more women also taking up leadership roles. So I think it's just a matter of, I think the region is a bit lagging compared to the West. I mean, in the Netherlands, where I'm from, is super. Everyone is like super, like, we need to be at the same level, et cetera, et cetera. So we're getting there. I think what is interesting to see is that now you even see a lot more women going into like hardcore tech. So like developers, like really beta focused grads. So I think that's really an amazing development. But it's just, we're just a couple of years behind. But that's also I think that's also the fun thing about it, because our company was focused on moms and babies. So what we did, we were the leading e-commerce for moms and babies. So you can imagine a lot of diapers, there's a lot of milk, a lot of strollers, a lot of baby stuff. And the majority of our staff was actually women as well. So we were very much in this, we were catering to women, and we also built with women. So it was an important value for us as well, to show that, coming from a very traditional picture of, husband working, wife at home, you see much more of these girls. They want to work. They don't just want to work, but they want to excel also in their career. So definitely a good movement going on. Of course, a bit lagging with the West, but it's getting there, which is exciting.
Well, oftentimes it's the economies or the industries that are lagging, or countries that are lagging, that sometimes jump ahead just because out of necessity, or they just don't have those same old mental constructs to deal with, the same ones, like as an example, so it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward. So what's your vision? So I know you have a big vision for, millennial leadership and this next generation. You finished your book, and congratulations on that. I know that was a big task. And so and you're speaking and you're training and so forth. What's the big vision that you have?
Well, I mean, the dream I have is really that, that leadership, maybe specifically in the region, because I'm here and, and I know the culture, that leadership is just going to change here, And at the end of the day, if I look at the top economies in the world, and I see the Southeast Asian countries, and I see Indonesia, they're not really playing like in the top of the chart. But looking from a population perspective, and looking at the resources we have here, then my dream is actually that the country is going to play like a major role in the world economy, right? But I believe that leadership is one of the keys for the economy to move forward and to get the country on the map. And like within our tech industry, there's always this pride, where they just made a list of like the top unicorn companies in the world. So it goes from the Airbnb, the Ubers, you name it. And there was also like an Indonesian startup there, just called Gojek, which is, let's say, the Uber of Indonesia. They just raised, I think, $1 billion US or something. They're valued now at $3 to $4 billion US dollars. So what it shows is that, I think partly also because of tech. Tech is new, tech is fast, and this generation is very attracted to tech because of the dynamics. I want to play a role in that, where we shift the mindset also of people. Like, man, like Indonesia is like one of the can play the game, can play the game, and look at the resources that we have. Not only from a land perspective, because there's a lot of like the soil is very fertile here, but also from the people perspective. Because even now, if you compare to China, for example, China, 10, 15 years ago was the country where they copy everything, right? And they produce everything because it's so cheap there.
Yeah.
Even in tech now, people are looking to China because they're innovating, they're pioneering. Yeah. I once read an article about a tech executive from Germany, I think, who was saying exactly that. It said 10 years ago, we were just, China was just looking at us, and they're like copying and they're executing, and boom, there's a new tech startup, which they copied from the West. He says, now we are looking at them because they are moving so fast and with billion plus people. Yeah. What do you think? Billion plus people, and there's so much money. And I really believe that Indonesia has the potential as well. But I also believe that this mindset shift needs to take place as part of transforming the economy, but also transforming the minds. So that's really like one of my my dreams, if I can contribute to that movement, because it's not only about money. It's like I really believe that it's a shift of minds, it's a shift of of gapping possibilities, because I am only here to execute, and just shifting them to say that there's actually much more in you, but you need to have some guidance, to someone to show you that, okay, this is actually possible. So yeah, that's
what's the population there?
255, 260 million people. Yeah, it's fourth largest country. So I think top 4 is going to be like China, India, US, Indonesia.
Right. So
US is 250. Yeah, I think maybe it's Brazil.
Yeah.
US is 250.
Is like right? 3 something.
300. Okay, 300. Yeah. So it's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, you've got a lot of people there with a lot of potential. So
there's a lot of people.
We're gonna mark this podcast, because one day we're gonna look back at this and you will have done it. You put Indonesia on the map, and here we go. This is where he was putting it out there, put the stake in the ground. I love it. I love it. I recently interviewed someone from Israel, Alejandra Castellanos, and she is she's in tech, and so she's actually connecting the Latin American market to what's happening in the tech world in Israel and so forth, and awesome. She'd be a great connection for you to see how that
for sure.
Works. But
Israel, tech is pretty big.
Very big, and it's so exciting when people are like, hey, you know what, I want to take this on and see a big vision, because it's like the crazy ones, like Steve Jobs, he talks about, here's to the crazy ones who actually believe that they're crazy enough to believe they can change the world. I'm like, that's me. That's me.
That's why I love your podcast, and I love like the names is good, right? I mean, Leaders of Transformation. It is, at the end of the day, we are all leaders of transformation. I always believe we all have a message, and we're all, whether we want it or not, we're influencing with all the time. We are, what we do, what words we use, right? So I think it's just more how do you use it, right? How do you use it, and what is the message that you want to share? And it takes time. I mean, it takes time to kind of like understand, like
patience. Patience with ourselves, knowing what we're actually here to do, and then actually doing it, and realizing that it's not going to be a quick fix. Yeah, it's interesting, because I used to say, I want to be an example, and I remember one of my mentors early on, he said, you already are an example. The question is, what kind of example are you choosing to be? It could be good, could be bad, could be a lot of things, but we're always influencing other people all the time. So I love what you're doing. So what can people expect in your book? What can they expect when they pick up a copy?
So I mean, how I look at it, right? I think like left or right, we're all exposed to this generation. We're all exposed to this generation because, millennials they're the buyers, they're the sellers, they're the influencers, they're the innovators, and you work with them, or you sell to them in one way. I mean, even the technology we use is kind of like made by them. So, I mean, just look at all the unicorn companies in the world. I mean, there's a big hand of those guys.
I'm like, where the hell were all you people when I was 16 trying to be in business? I was like, I was way ahead of it. They're like, what the hell?
Now it's in the common. So I actually wrote this book with these youngsters in mind that I hired. Right. So that's kind of like this millennial generation. So I think the main reader would be those millennials who are just working now. And I write to them saying, so the context should be this, right? Where I'm hiring this guy from a corporate, for example. He comes into my company, and I take him by the hand, and I think, okay, you know what? If you want to excel as a leader, and you want to see your full potential like grow, you want to learn how to be more self-aware, more confident, like take these steps. So I take them through six steps, which actually are these six steps. I actually took these guys that I hired, I took them through these 6 steps, where I believe that when you master these 6 steps, when you kind of like understand better these 6 concepts, right, you will become a better leader. So I think main priorities for the millennials who are now working, who are now entering into leadership jobs. But at the same time, I've had some proofreaders who are not millennials, who are from a generation before, but even they got some seeds, about just excelling in life and leading a life. I always give an example of a tree and a leaf on a tree, right? So the wind is blowing, so the leaf goes from side to side based on where the wind goes. And I believe that life in general should not be totally like that. And of course, there's wind once in a while, but I think you need to lead. You need to take action. And leading is not per se that everyone needs to be a CEO. I'm not saying that, but I do believe you need to lead your life and just make a proper like decision on intention where you want to go, where you want to grow. But to do that, you need to first understand like who you are. So there's certain steps. So it's more like, so the book is called Ignite Millennial Leadership, right? And Ignite is an acronym actually for inspiration. I believe leadership is like massive about inspiration. Richard Branson once said that leadership is the top 3 characteristics of inspiration is one of the top 3 characteristics of any leader in whatever setting. So to inspire, and especially this generation, which has a very short attention span, you need to inspire them from a deeper level instead of just motivating them. I come from a banking background where we were motivated by this year-end bonus, and it keeps on going. So every quarter there's a bonus or a promotion. So you keep working towards that moment, but it's like, it's like peaking, But when you inspire people, you take them from the inside and you let them believe in a bigger vision for themselves, but also for the company we're working for. So inspire is number 1. Number 2 is G. The G is for growth. So I believe in this whole growth versus fixed mindset, which is Carol Dweck, a Stanford professor, has been writing a lot about it. And also there I see these guys. I mean, their default mindset is just a fixed mindset. It's just, if you don't do it well, you fail, you're not good. So then they're already like not really triggered to explore more because the chances of failure is going to be bigger. So it's shifting that mindset, understanding. N is for nurturing. So it's not only about getting a title of leader or team head. How do you keep on sharpening the saw, right? I is for influence. And T is for trust. And the E is for excellence. So these six steps, these 6 concepts, I take them by the hand, and these are things that I've taught my guys, my team, which I call them proven steps because I've seen leadership grow because of these. Sometimes they look like simple steps, but then when I think about my old colleague who was like 55 and has been working with the bank all his life, but still didn't know where he was going. He was wishing to work somewhere else. But then he said to me, but even within the bank, no other department is going to accept me because I've been doing this all my life. And I think that is something you need to avoid. That's something you need to avoid. Yeah. Prefer to do it in an early stage where just take the time to think about what you're good at, what your dreams really are, and work towards that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's great. I love it. And, it's interesting. You were talking about Gary Vee. I saw him recently, this graduation speech, sort of like he was him doing it, where he was just kind of like on the fly. But, he put it on LinkedIn and, and he talked about do it soon, do it early, fail forward, fail fast, try things, screw up. And like you said, so you don't end up, like you don't put yourself in a box at a young age. Yeah. Just let yourself screw up and try things that may not work. But when you're 50 and people have put you in this box and said you've done this your whole life and old dogs can't learn new tricks, which is not true. It's but that they've developed these neural pathways that if they chose to, they could. But as a young person, you don't have any of that. Developed. So you could just create it yourself. And you talked about leadership. I mean, I agree with you. It's like leadership starts with us. We have to lead ourselves. You don't have to be the CEO of a major company, but you're always going to be a CEO of You Inc., which is your own company, right? You're always going to be that. So be a good CEO of your own company and know your own strengths. And that's what I got out of this conversation. It's like know your strengths, be self-aware, and and put yourself in a position to win as a result of that. So I love it. That's great.
Yeah, so true. Because
So
it's always a discussion, right? About well, leadership, but not everyone can be a CEO. I also believe not everyone can be a CEO, and not everyone is called to be a
nobody's going
CEO.
to want to. Yeah,
No,
not
yeah,
everybody's
maybe
called
not.
to.
Yeah,
And my dad used to say, you know what, hey, not everybody is meant to be a business owner. Not everybody is meant to, some
yeah,
people, like doing certain jobs. Hey, good for them, because if they didn't
exactly,
do it, we'd have to.
exactly,
Somebody have to
exactly.
do it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, that's it's fine. It's just, but it's the mindset,
The
right?
mindset.
And so I love it.
Yeah.
So final thoughts before we wrap up. What would you want to leave our listeners with?
I mean, I think one of the main things is that we should love people and use things, and not the other way around. And I think human capital or people is, I think, the most scarcest or valuable resources that we have. And too many times I see people like just being used as a tool, or of course people are also tools, but I think we need to really value people. And we have an opportunity. Everyone has the opportunity to plant seeds. I think it's just we need to be more intentional. I think the moment we are more intentional with what we can sow, then
Yes.
the more rich the harvest will be. So I think a lot of people use things is important to me, and spread a message of hope and lift other people. I think, and then the last one would be that just serving others. Where for me personally, we've been through a journey where it was a bit about us, like how good we were as a management, and we have the headlines and we have the CNBC Squawk Box interviews, and we're mentioned in Vanity Fair and Bloomberg, and oh yeah, we're so amazing. But it's not about that, right? It's actually not about that. I think the most fulfilling part, coming back again to the example of this kid I bring into my company, and seeing people transform into their full potential, I think that is one of the most fulfilling things I have ever experienced from a leadership role. So love people, use things, serve other people, and just really think about this message that you want to share, because we all have one,
Yeah.
but we need to take some time to find it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's worth finding it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
So where do people go to find your copy of your book? You've got your website, Andrew Senduk.
Yeah, so that's a good one. So I'm gonna drop it on Amazon and next week.
Okay.
If all goes well, I'll send you the link. Once everything is done, I'll send you the link. So it's gonna be good. It's been a lonely journey.
Well, by the time this comes out, it'll be live, I'm sure. And we'll make sure that link gets in the show notes. So for those of you listening or watching, go to leadersoftransformation.com, and you can actually do a search. There's a search feature where you can put in Andrew's name, Andrew Senduk, Senduk. Oh God, I'm totally butchering that. Senduk, and put that in there, and it'll bring up the show notes for this episode, and we'll make sure all the links are in there so you can get a copy of his book, that you can connect to him. And it's awesome. And I'm a big believer in taking action. So I always tell my listeners at the end, or ask them and saying, hey, what are you going to do with what you've learned here today? Andrew, you shared some very valuable nuggets, whether you're a millennial listening or you're a leader that has millennials on your team and you're trying to figure out what the heck to do with them, or your kid is a millennial, and you're like, what the heck? So we're all surrounded by that. We're surrounded by them, and they have such, like I said at the beginning, they have such untapped potential there. And it's our job, even as the older generations, it's our job. And I believe it's our responsibility to give them, and encourage them to be everything, because the next generation is always, the idea is that it's going to be better every generation, and they can just, exponentially grow and make such a, bigger impact. But it starts with us it starts with today, and like, what are you going to do today with what you've learned? One
Mm.
thing, just even if it's one thing that you take out of this conversation
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
say, okay, I'm gonna apply that. I encourage you to that. And again, Andrew, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to our listeners, and go out there, be a leader of transformation. Like Andrew said, every single person is a leader of transformation. The question
Yeah.
is, what kind of transformation are you creating?
That's
And
it.
what direction are you going? So with that, have a great day. We'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Leaders of Transformation real soon.